Today is the 25th of July, 2017, and we are interviewing Peter Fantacone at his home in Mays Landing, New Jersey. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where were you born?
I was born in Manayunk, Philadelphia, back in 1925.
1925.
Went to Roman Catholic High School and down in Philadelphia. And after high school, I went to service. Then after that, I went to St. Joe's College and graduated in 1950 from St. Joe's.
And what did you do after you went to college?
I worked for Westinghouse Electric Corporation for steam turbines down in Leicester, Pennsylvania. Steam turbine we use for generation electricity. I was a purchasing manager. I graduated actually in June the 6th, 1943, and I joined the Navy right at that, 17. And June 6, 1944, I was in the invasion of Normandy, 1 year later.
Wow. Where did you take basic training?
Basic training was up in Sampson, New York.
Yes. Up
in upstate New York on the Finger Lakes. Real nice place in the summertime, very cold in the wintertime. After basic training, we ended up going across the field there to the radio school up in Sampson, New York. I graduated with from a class of, I guess, about 100. There was 5 of us got what they call a petty officer's rating. So I got a 3rd class petty officer's rating. I wanted to join the Navy from when I was this high, you know, and I like radio, so I really enjoy what I was doing, and that's what made me really, you know, come out on top there. They sent us down to Norotan Heights, Connecticut, in like an advanced radio school to be radio operators on merchant ships. They took over this big house right on Long Island Sound, I guess it was, and it was really nice. In fact, they had a cooks and baker school there. They were training, so boy, we had all kind of stuff cooked. So it was real nice. That lasted about 5 or 6 weeks, and then for some reason they pulled us out of there. They sent us to Lido Beach, Long Island. It was a marine place there, and what they did, they took all our Navy clothes away, and they gave us marine uniforms, you know, fatigues and all that kind of stuff. What we were training for was to land on enemy beaches with our radios and then spot the targets and radio back to the ships. So we trained for that, but in the training we went through actually boot camp, marine boot camp. We were, you know, climbing over obstacles. They gave me a carbine and all this kind of stuff. We're out in a firing range. So we were out in the firing range, be firing, my helmet fall down in front of me. You know, I was in the Navy, I wasn't a Marine. Then this one day they took us and they marched us down to the train station. And I remember there were like people on either side, and they were all crying and everything else because they knew we were headed for overseas. There was this ship, the USS Ariel, a Navy transport. This was now about maybe about April of 44. We pulled out of New York Harbor. So I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty. We pulled out. Then we joined a convoy that we headed over toward England. They had your destroyers and everything running around doing guard duty from the submarines. Then a couple of times they'd be dropping depth charges and things like that. But when that happened, you know, I never went down below deck. We waited up on deck till everything. I don't want to get caught down below. We're pulling into, I guess they're going past the islands up there in Scotland or Ireland or someplace like that. And I still remember we were so close to these islands that it was on a Sunday morning and you could hear the church bells ringing as we sailed up in the Firth of Clyde, I guess it was, up into there. We ended up in Roseneath, Scotland, which is the northern part, a receiving base. We got off the ship there and we lived in these Quonset huts. And this one night they came in, they got a work party. They put us on a boat. We went out and we got on with an ammunition ship. Still remember the name, USS Nitro. That was a good name for it. The hold of this ship had looked like all coal bins. Remember the coal bin used to look like? But in them they had all these shells, and all these shells are all color coded for what they do, and look like all Easter eggs. So we went up to the, I guess it was a 12-inch shell, it was a pretty big shell, and 12-inch diameter. And I think we had hand trucks. We put them on the hand truck and bring it over, wheel it over, and then they would lower the chain, and we hooked these things up somehow, and they used to lift them up, and they were taking them someplace. And we did that all night, you know, and I was talking to the crew, you know. In fact, they were sleeping right by these shells are going up. They were sleeping there, you know. We're talking to our crew. How do you live on this ship? You know, it's an ammunition ship. He said, if we ever get hit, we will never know it. But anyway, so the story goes that these shells were unloading. Little do we know that on June the 6th, 1944, they were going to the Texas and the Arkansas and the Nevada. And before we went to the beach, they were firing these shells that we loaded on the ship, fired them into Normandy. We were moving down to Scotland now. And remember, we got on a train. The trains in England were different than the trains over here. You know, to have these compartments where you sit. It was a real nice ride. And we went down through, you know, from Scotland all the way down. In London, I think we changed trains in London. And what I saw in London was what really, you know, sort of was a little different. Was like everybody, all the baggage handlers, the carts are all moving them all around. They were all women. So I noticed that. Then we went all the way down to southern England, to the town of Weymouth, south central coast of England, I guess. Rode down to the docks and everything, you know. And there was the LCI 492. That's going to be my home. We were there now. This is like about the middle of May, you know, right before the invasion. But we didn't know anything. I mean, we didn't know anything about an invasion. We didn't know about Normandy. We knew nothing. You know, we're being transferred someplace. We put radios on there, and they sort of made us like a headquarters LCI. And but we also carry troops. Yeah, the LCI is actually the smallest ocean-going ship in the Navy. She carries a crew of 4 officers, about 24 men. She's 150 feet long with about a 24-foot beam. Mm-hmm. The LCIs, they go right up onto the beach. You have a flat bottom. I think they took a draft in the front of about 4 feet and the back about 6 feet, mm-hmm. which is very important later on. And we would sail right onto the beach. Okay, now we have ramps on each side, and we didn't have any doors opened up or anything like that, and the soldiers would run down these 2 ramps onto the beach. Okay. That's how we would discharge them. Then we would back off and go out to sea again after we unloaded our troops.
Okay. And where you located on the LCI?
I was down in the radio room. Like when the ships are out at sea, you can't open up and send messages because you give your position away. So therefore, all ships at sea in the Atlantic, they would have Washington, D.C., called NSS. And Washington, D.C. would transmit Morse code 24 hours a day. And all the ships out in the European theater would copy this. They called it Fox. And every ship stood watch on that Fox network. You put it on your ears. And some ships would copy everything, you know, that came across. And others, the thing was, you wait for your call sign. Every message come across, you know, you can't, that's who it's to, you know, W so-and-so, to so-and-so. And if your name was in the call sign there, then you made sure you copied that message. So what most ships did, we always copied the headings of the first message, which gave the ship they were calling, where they're calling from, like NSS Washington, was all in 5-letter coda groups, which had to be decoded. Now, that gets back to radio school. When we were in radio school and being a radio man, you had a copy which was 18 words a minute, which is pretty fast. You'll find out your Navy radio operators are really good code copiers because we had to be. So in radio school, we got that boom, 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 you know, till you got to the point where you can copy the code and talk to somebody, you know. Mm-hmm. So anyway, to get back on the dock in England, just a few days before the invasion, boy, all these troops are coming on the ship. And we're loaded down with troops. So I said, well, something big's going to happen. They said, no, they've been there like for about maybe 6 months. I said, it's just going to be another practice run. On June the 5th, okay, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they said, anybody wants to attend, you know, Catholic Mass, the priest is going to be there and they're going to say Mass on the docks. Every soldier and sailor on those ships, you know, about 9 ships, they were actually hanging over the ship on the dock, you know, attending Mass. Then the priest gave everybody general absolution. So being Catholic, I know, hey, general absolution, something's going to happen. So then I said, this isn't another practice run. So it was about, I guess about like, you know, that was about 3 o'clock or so, like that. And then about 1700, 5 o'clock, we set special sea detail, and we start pulling out from the dock, and we go out out toward the ocean, go past a spot called Portland Bill. And we pass Portland Bill, and we get out in the open sea, and Bob, you can see ships, all kind of ships. You got transports, you got warships, you got landing craft. All these ships, all, you know, were all breaking through the sea, and all heading for France. And it was rough. It was really rough because The invasion was supposed to be actually on the 5th. In fact, they had actually sent, some ships were early on their way to, to France. And one of the big things was these ships were on their way. That Eisenhower, called it off and they went to get these ships back. They sent the message to turn around. The captain, he didn't believe the radio man, so he wanted to see the message. So he actually went down to the radio shack and saw the message to turn around. These destroyers, they went by single lights, and they went flashing around, telling all these ships like a sheepdog, herd them all around. They turned them all around and sent them all back. Then that was on the night of the 4th. So now we're on our way on the 5th. Now, and like I say, the weather was so bad, that's why Eisenhower called it off. And then he got word from the English meteorologist. He said, we're going to have this time space in here where we will be able to sail. So that's when Eisenhower said go. And so anyway, so we're on our way. We get out into the ocean now with all these ships, and we're all heading to, and we're bouncing around like a cork. We burn diesel fuel, and boy, this diesel smoke is coming out, and oh, my stomach, and we're bouncing up and down. It's my first time on really a small ship. Let me just back up a little bit, just a little story. When we're at the dock, okay, and so we had the soldiers on board. Somebody said, why don't we feed these people? All they have is K rations. They don't have anything decent. Let's feed them what we can to give them a good meal. So they went to the captain, and the captain said, give them whatever they want. Our cook, he cooked a big meal of biscuit and gravy. He must have used up all our supply. But anyway, we gave him a good meal. We sailed all night. And about 0300, we arrived at the salt area right off of Normandy. And
that's the area where they marshaled. You call it Piccadilly Circus?
I guess they must have, yeah. I didn't know that. I was the radio man, I guess they had their orders where to go and the circle and all that.
It's interesting why they did that. They were afraid of moving in closer because of the Germans had cannons at Pointe du Hoc that could possibly reach. So in order to be safe, the marshalling point was 11 miles out, which made the trip in relatively long.
Yeah, right, yeah. About 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, the battleships opened up. The battleship Nevada, Texas, Tuscaloosa cruiser, and the Quincy, and others that they start barraging, for a half hour. They just threw things in, And then we went in, our LCIs, we were assigned to Omaha Beach. Now, I'm going to tell you about the LCI. The LCI were mostly a Coast Guard flotilla, made up about 24 or so. We had a few Navy ships in there. We were one of the Navy LCIs. And these Coast Guard LCIs, they were battled hard. They had been at Anzio and places like that in Africa. So, and they were all older LCIs. And you tell the difference between the LCI, the old LCI had a square con tower on them, and the Navy LCIs had a round con tower on them. In fact, they looked more like a submarine. That's another story. So our part of the flotilla, we went into Omaha Beach. We were landed at low tide because the Germans had obstacles on the beach, and we would go into low tide so we could see the obstacles. Now, the tides at Normandy were tremendous length, really, really big tides, So these soldiers had to run, from at low tide off the thing.
I would imagine it was difficult getting the ship with the tides and the drifting and to get around the obstacle. Bosun's mate probably had a pretty difficult time getting that LCI up against the shore.
One LCI, the LCI 85, when she went in, Germans had all kinds of obstacles, and some of them had like wooden things sticking out. Others had iron girders. Or this one LCI 85, she went right through this wooden obstacle. So we're going in, so we must have landed low tide, and then what would happen is the soldiers, when they get off the ship, they'd be wounded or laying there.
You're taking fire when you hit the ship, hit the shore, right?
Oh yeah. Our signalman, he was on the bridge, he saw all this, and he said the guys were running down these ramps. He said as soon as they run down the ramps, they were being cut down. He said, run right into the other. The ones that did get on the beach But what happened, the tide was coming in, so therefore these dead wounded were being washed out to sea. We were lucky. We were able to, get our troops off and suffered a lot of casualties, the troops going off, but the ship itself, we were okay. Now the LCI 91 and the 92, the Coast Guard, and LCI 85, they were sunk, German 88s and everything else as they went in, and because the LCI is a pretty big target, and the Germans were up on the hill there, and they were matrixed in. Rommel really built an Atlantic wall, and they were mowing them down as they come across, and what the soldiers tried to do is make it up this seawall. There's like a seawall there, and if they get there, the Germans couldn't shoot at them, so they were bunched up against there. The others were just laying there on the beach. They didn't even move. The 85 went in, loaded some of her troops, then she retracted, and then she went in again, and she really got hit, okay, and she was listing badly, and they had wounded aboard, and the LCI 85 made it out to the attack transport, the Coast Guard attack transport, the Samuel Chase, and she unloaded her troops. Then the LCI was just capsized, and it sunk, and I could still see it had like a red lead bottom, the orange bottom, and it sunk off. 91, 92, they got sunk. 80, 85 finally got sunk, and others were damaged, and also, so our LCI really took a beating on Omaha. We said that was probably one of the bloodiest days in Coast Guard's history. At nighttime, boy, they mounted an air raid on us, just the firepower, 5,000 ships firing up in the air. It looked like one current of fire. It looked like 1,000 4th of July rolled into one. All these tracer shells going up and everything else. I mean, we had supreme air power.
After delivering your troops, you went back to the marshalling area.
No, after that, we came back out, and we became sort of a communication ship or a headquarters ship, and we did all kind of duties. I think what we were
just laying offshore.
We laid offshore. We actually laid offshore from June the 6th to the middle of July, when they broke through at St. Lo.
Were you involved in that big storm on the 19th?
Oh yeah. We were involved in that, and I remember when that thing hit. That was the worst storm I think in about I don't know how many years.
Describe what happened.
First of all, they had sunk different ships miles out or for a breakwater, and they had sunk an old English battleship, and they had sunk some Liberty ships and other old ships, and we were out there all this time. So at nighttime, a lot of time we used to tie up next to these ships. So when the storm came, we were tied up as normal, but we were even battered so bad that we pulled away from the ships. We were on our own. All I can say is I never bounced around so much with a flat bottom. We were bouncing all over the place. There was no food. I mean, only sandwiches. It lasted for 3 days. And we were lucky. We were afraid that we would run out of fuel. And if we run out of fuel, then we'd be washed ashore, like many of the ships did. And that storm did more damage than the Germans did. They knocked down the Mulberry, that artificial dock. The ships were laying up on the beach, washed ashore. And but we were lucky. But we bounced around, but you couldn't sink us.
Yeah,
that
Mulberry that Mulberry was a huge artificial harbor.
Oh yeah, concrete towed it over there. They hadn't taken Cherbourg yet, so they really needed to use that was the port.
Yeah,
and that's when they start landing on the beach again. Right up on the beach, and your big LSTs, with cargo on them, they were going up. It was a big battle. They called it Operation Cobra. And Operation Cobra, that lasted until they broke through at St. Lo. Like I said, we did various duties when we were offshore. We rescue work, and it's one time where there was a couple of LCIs, and we had this big barge loaded with ammunition, big ammunition barge, a huge thing, and we're going to push it into the beach, right? Till we were told by blinker light that we were still in a minefield. They hadn't swept it. So we got up on the beach, and we got her there, and we backed off, so we were lucky we didn't hit any mines. But everybody was holding their breath. So, and then the air raids, we were subject to air raids. And then another thing at night, the German E-boats, like our torpedo boats, like they would infiltrate the invasion fleet at night. and torpedo some of the ships. Bad. Well, a couple of things that didn't happen. In other words, the infantry, like on Omaha Beach and everything, they were supposed to have, they didn't have any artillery support or anything. The support they were supposed to have were from tanks. Now, we had designed this new tank, which had like a big life preserver around, big canvas thing around it. And they would propel themselves by themselves into the beach. And they would be launched from an LCT, okay? And then it would go into the beach. Well, there was 29 of them, and 28 of them went to the bottom like a rock because the seas were so rough. So therefore, the infantry on Omaha Beach didn't have any support. The other thing was, the Air Force was supposed to drop their bombs on the beach. The weather was so bad, they were told to hold they couldn't see, they were told to hold their bombs for about 10 seconds or something like that, which they did, and all their bombs didn't land on the beach, where there'd be foxholes and everything, inland. The other thing is, the bombardment from the battleships, they did little damage to the bunkers. The way they were situated, like they were facing down onto the beaches rather than out to sea. So apparently they did little damage. So those three things, they really made it bad. And then on Omaha Beach, Bradley was going to recall Omaha Beach. They were going to give it up at loss and go into Utah. But then these Navy destroyers, one was USS Frankfurt. The captain of the Frankfurt was Zimmerman, Captain Zimmerman. They saw the beach, and they saw all the soldiers that were laying on the beach and everything, like they couldn't move, you know, and because they had orders not to fire because they would hit the people. But they took it upon themselves that they went in, and soldiers still say it, these destroyers went in into the beach, looked like going to run aground, turned broadside, and went up and down the beach all day, and not all day, for hours, and they knocked out every German bunker on that beach. And only then were they able to advance on Omaha Beach. A lot of people don't know that, but that's why they advanced.
It is, I believe, most historians and most military historians are in agreement that the plan to invade at Normandy failed, that the plan was inadequate. What made it a victory was what you just cited, the ingenuity and the ability to change and to make things happen, like this commander of the destroyer, seeing that, hey, this has to be, and going in there. The troops on the beach doing things that were not in the plan.
Yeah.
And it was the strength of the naval personnel and the Army, the sergeants who were on the beach, who it was their ability to assess the situation and change the plan that made Omaha Beach successful. They would have been pushed back into the sea.
Omaha Beach would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
Like Bradley was ready to pull out.
Yeah.
He was ready to pull out. The whole plan, though, was a phenomenal plan to congregate so many ships, so many men on so many schedules, and be a surprise. And it was just phenomenal. No computers, nothing like that. And these all figured out. And like the skipper of our LCI, they were 90-day wonders. They picked up their ship down.
They were 18 years old.
Yeah. Well, they were old people. They were 24. So, but the officers, and the men, like these LCIs, they all convened down in Little Creek, Virginia. That's where they trained them. And it was like a fast. They were running up on the beach, they're bumping the docks and everything like that. And just going over to Europe was something, because I talked to the crew on the LCI. They left on Christmas Eve. They left New York Harbor, and they were in the convoy there. And they says all they did, they didn't know too much navigation or anything, but every ship had in the back of it what's called a ready light, which you could see from the rear. You couldn't see any of the weapons, and they were told follow that light. So, and if they got lost, they were supposed to go someplace else and convene the next day. They made it okay. They get up there. But the LCI, they got lost. Okay. The story on that LCI goes that the captain didn't know where he was or anything, but they had on there a Norwegian seaman. So he said, well, do this, this, and this. When the air flotilla, I wasn't on it then, when the air flotilla got up to England, this other LCI was already there. They said, how'd you get here? Anyway, they said, I told us, oh, that's great. He said, but you went all through kind of minefields and everything else. So it's a little bit of the history behind, you know, the personnel, they were, man, you know, and then when they're in this big invasion, you know, all these ships are,
Yeah.
it's amazing. They sent us to Cherbourg. They had just taken the port of Cherbourg. We were the first Navy radio station into Cherbourg. We lived in right on the dock there, you know, and we used to see all the ships in the harbor all sunk and everything else, you know, boy, you know, what they had to do to clean that harbor up to use it was really something. The radio station was like a big concrete building down by the dock with a big steel door, you know, no windows or anything, and that was the radio station. So I guess the Germans must have built that. So then we went up to, they took Le Havre. So we went up into Le Havre, and boy, Le Havre was devastated. You know, we took over this big 2 mansions we took on top of the hill overlooking Le Havre, and we made them the radio stations. But I still remember Le Havre was almost flattened, and you know, the Americans bombed during the day and the British bombed during the night. We were up on top of this hill, and we took over this building. It was an old mansion, had big mirrors, fireplaces, you know, but no running, no toilet or anything like that. The Army used to pick us up by truck, take us down to town to eat, to get our lunch and meals and everything until we built our own stuff up there. I went back to England, and it was in Plymouth, England. Oh, interesting side story. We were back to England, and we got on this ship called the USS President Warfield. And it was like a barrack ship, you know, they put you there temporarily till they send you someplace. So I was only on there like a few days or so, a week maybe at the most. And it was an old ship they supplied at Norfolk, Virginia, down that way, with all wooden stairways and everything like that. But anyway, this ship turned out to be the Exodus I, the one that took the Jews back to Israel. I was sent back to the States, home 30 days, and I went to report down the Philadelphia Navy Yard. Boy, that was great. I lived there, right? So they made it shore patrol, you know, shore patrol. My spot was like 12th and Market. It was a Fanny Farber candy place there. We'd stand there to me and another else, you know, out of 45 and all that stuff, you know.
Your spats?
Yeah, the spats, a whole bit, you know. And so we're there, and then the Reading Terminal was there with the trains and all, you know, coming in. So we used to get a lot of calls, go on the train, help the sailors off. Sometimes they'd be a little under the weather, you know. So, but that's all we had there until this one night, this chief comes along in a Jeep. He says, hop on. He says, we got a riot going. So we hop on this Jeep, and he take us back to 15th and Market. Back in there, there's little streets. There's this nightclub. We opened that door, it looked like something out of a movie. Chairs, stools lying around, people fighting, all servicemen, all fighting everything. So we opened it, closed the door again, and so we wait till that simmers down, you know. So finally it simmered down, and we called the Navy Yard. They sent up some vehicles, so we pulled these guys out and put them on a vehicle. That's a couple interesting things. And the other thing, we guarded some German prisoners down there. Like they worked in the cafeteria down at the Navy Yard, and some German prisoners, we used to guard them.
LCI in Normandy, the LCIs took prisoners back off the beach.
I saw them getting on was this LCT, which is smaller than LCI, carries tanks, you know, the wide
landing craft tank.
Yeah. And they were walking down in the column, and as they walked down, we were all on our LCI were watching this, you know. And as it got closer, this LCT would keep backing out, and these guys are in the water. So finally it stopped. So where they took them to, I don't know. Next thing I see on the board, you know, report to Brooklyn, USS Columbus.
This is a newly commissioned ship.
Brand new. Went up to Brooklyn, and it wasn't there. It was up in Boston. So we went up to Boston, and she had just got back from her shakedown cruise, I think. Now you're in a different atmosphere. It's like moving from a small town to a big city. From server on LCI, you know, you walked around in dungarees. Now you're on this big ship, and you got to wear the uniform of the day and all this sort of thing. But it was a good ship. Like being a radio operator, when we're off the coast, sailing down toward Cuba, we get the message where we're going to go. Down to Guantanamo, you know, through the canal, out to Hawaii, to Tsingtao, China. we typed the message up, and it's delivered to the captain. One time, he was being transferred or something, and we knew about it, and he sent word down to the radio room. He said, next time I get transferred, I want to be the first to know about it. Went down through the canal, which was quite an experience. It took us 8 hours to go through the different locks, and they had a guide aboard. He was telling all about as we go through. He's over a loudspeaker telling what's going on.
It's like a cruise ship.
Just like a cruise ship. And then we took off for Hawaii. Got out in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor on Christmas Day. Went into Pearl Harbor, went through the harbor, went up to Pearl City, up the Pearl River to Pearl City.
Yeah.
Were you been here?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to talk about that.
The war is over now.
Yeah, the war's over, yes. So we sailed out of Pearl Harbor, all the way out to Tsingtao, China. And we relieved the cruiser, I think it was a Wilkes-Barre, I forget what the name of it was. So we're going up, she's steaming out, get relieved, I know where she was headed. I find out later on why we were there. That's when they were negotiating with the Chinese communists, trying to keep the communists from going down to China. And we were supposed to show a force. From there, we went down to Shanghai. Shanghai, go up the Wangpu River, which is about as wide as the Delaware. So we docked right in the middle of the river. But what happened is, all these boats would surround us. And they called them bumboats, because things were so bad in Shanghai at that time. People were dying on the street. I mean, it was winter time, it's February, and really bitter cold, and Shanghai was in bad shape. These boats would surround our ship, and what we would do, all the food we didn't eat, we used to throw in their GI cans, I guess. Well, they used to line up, and they used to go around the ship and dump the food in all these little boats. People used to live on them, and that's why we called them bumboats. We went ashore this one time, and they told us, don't travel by yourself. You'll end up in the Wangpu River dead. So we went ashore, and about 6 of us, and we go up, and as desolate everything was, people starving and all, they still had like a nightclub or something there, and we're sitting there, and this Chinese guy talked real good English. He befriended us, and then we're talking and everything and all that, and then I said, I think I'm going to go back to the ship. So this guy said, I'll take you back, So I walked out. As soon as I walked out that door, I said, I shouldn't be doing this, And now you're going through the streets of Shanghai. You can walk from the place to the ship. We're going through these little narrow streets. It's winter time. It's the steamboat. You remember Bulldog Drumming?
Yes,
Okay.
I watched a movie the other day.
That's what it reminded me of. Steam coming out, and this guy is saying, stay behind me, get in front of me, And I said to myself, oh boy, I'm going to end up in the Wangpu River. And all I had with me, I had a knife, I had a pea coat, so I had this knife up like a pen knife up my sleeve here, So for protection if anything would happen. So boy, we're walking. I was really sweating. So then he said, can you think you can give me some cigarettes? That's the reason why he was taking me back. So I said, oh yeah, I'll get you all the cigarettes you want, So he was taking me back, went through it. Finally, we ended up on the dock, and everything was okay, and I got back on the ship. So
did he get his cigarettes?
No, the next night, the guys got back from Liberty, and they said, hey, there's a guy on the dock waiting for you. Well, I never went off the ship again. Well, we pulled out not too much long after that. But what a sad place that was compared to Shanghai today. A little story. Like I said, I'm a tour guide on the battleship New Jersey, or was a tour guide. And this one time, this Chinese fella, about my age, was his daughter, and they were touring the ship, and they were on my tour. So I'm talking to him. I said, you Chinese? Or he said, oh yeah. I said, I told him I was in Shanghai in 1945, 46. And I said, we're really in bad shape. So the woman said, oh yeah, very bad. She talked English. The father didn't talk English. So when I told her about the bumboats, and she talked to her father, and then she turned around to me. He says that you're a hero. He was one of the guys in those bumboats.
Wow.
Isn't that something? Yes. From Shanghai, we went down to Yokosuka, Japan. That's the southern part there, and a big naval base. We had Liberty, so I went up to Tokyo. Went into Tokyo, and things were still pretty bad up there. but the Japanese had a lot of respect for us and everything like that. So we get up to Tokyo, and we're there, and we're going to go back to the ship. And this army truck come along and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're going down to Yokosuka. Oh, we're going down. I'll hop in." So we hop on the back of the truck. These guys, they take us. We get up in the mountains there or someplace, a little village, and they said, "This is as far as we go." I said, "What do you mean we got?" And they got 3 sailors in the middle of this little town with animals running around the street and everything else, So how are we going to get back there? He said, "Well," he says, "what's going to happen?" He says, "Somebody's going to come along in the car. Just stay on the road and stop them and tell them where you want to go." So sure enough, this little car comes along, and we stop it and told the driver, "When to go Yokosuka." He goes like this, So one got in the front, 2 got in the back. He took us all the way down to Yokosuka, and then from there we went down to Sasebo, Japan. You familiar with Sasebo? Sasebo, Japan is where all the submarine headquarters of the Japanese were. All the submarines were in Sasebo, and it's a beautiful harbor. Mountains on either side. We sailed in, and we were assigned to do. There were 23 Japanese submarines were prize of war, and we were going to take them out, and we're going to have people on, blow them up. They all sailed past us out to the ocean, and they all had, some of them had like cherry twigs or something coming out their periscope, some kind of ceremony, and they took them out, and they sunk them. So the captain says, "The next submarine is the submarine that sank the Indianapolis." Remember the Indianapolis story?
Yes.
He said, "This is the submarine that sank the Indianapolis." He sort of blew that one out of the water. So that's what happened to the submarine that sank the Indianapolis. We sunk the submarine that sank the Indianapolis. From Sasebo, we went back to the States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you left the Navy shortly thereafter?
Yeah, we pulled in California, then went cross country in a troop train, and that was the experience. We get on this troop train, and I think the chow hall was a boxcar, where they served chow. And in those days, you had a steam locomotives. You open the windows, get all covered with coal dust. Mm-hmm. So we're going through, and we get into around Colorado. So we stopped to let another train go by. So we all get off the train, and we come down to the creek, and then we got back on the train again. Well, about 5 or 6 of them were still down there. Another train came by. We pull out without these fellas, and so we go all the way back. We wonder what happened to them. So we get into Pittsburgh. Who shows up with these 6 fellas? They came across on a Pullman dining car, and there we were, all covered with coal dust and everything. So finally, we went back to going toward Bainbridge. Right outside of Bainbridge, the train goes off the track. Nobody got hurt. The train just went off the track. So we had that little incident. Then we went to Bainbridge. Then I got discharged and came home.
It's important that you tell this story because you lived it.
Yeah.
And it's important for people to understand that you and many people of your generation and then generations thereafter risked your life for the freedoms and for the rights that we enjoy today.
That's right, yeah.
And, I just want to thank you for sitting in and sharing your experiences with us. You're a terrific man, and it's a privilege to have had the honor to speak with you.
Thanks.